up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for November 8th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Feel Good Friday edition of the podcast. Feeling pretty good for getting very little sleep last night. Great night at the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Today, I'll go through my notes and provide a nice recap tomorrow. I will go on and give you some highlights later in the show. But a great time. Very tired, but very worth it. Before we get into the show, let's do some quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. I think based on, maybe not today, but in the very near future, based on the success of the shorts I did on the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductees, going to start posting more, maybe some YouTube-only content on there, so stay tuned for that. But spread the word, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and let's continue to grow this thing, constantly getting new listeners. Very excited in the direction that this is heading. The Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame Heritage Collection is now available online. Everything you need is in the description. And as I've been saying, and last night really sort of proved that to me, is it's more, and I guess I'll get into the recap as I'm talking about the Heritage Collection, but the Hall of Fame is so much more than just the memorabilia and the artifacts. It's about these people's stories, their lives, and as you know on this podcast, I really like to give you the background and really, because to me, a lot of these events and a lot of the things that happen take me back to that time when they were happening. And I think that's important. I think it's important to tell the story, and just, it's, yes, sports is an escape from reality, but I think the fact that sports is such a major part of the fabric of our lives, and especially here in Philly, probably more so than any other place, I think it's important to tell those stories. So with the Heritage Collection, been really working to try to get that background information and tell the story about the artifacts. I have a ton of stuff still in my truck I got to unload, but there's just such a rich history, and those stories need to be told. So be sure to check that out in the description. And like I've been saying, things have been going very well here at This Day in Philly Sports History. We've been featured a few times now in the On Pattison newsletter. So continue to check that out. Looks like we're going to be there once, maybe twice a week. So very excited with that partnership as well. But again, just spread the word. I've been saying it, but it's the truth. If you're enjoying this, likely someone in your circle of friends and colleagues will as well. So just spread the word and mention This Day in Philly Sports History. All right, so I'll have more detail on the actual ceremony tomorrow. But what a fun time. And it was a long day. Got down there probably almost at 1 o'clock, set up a room with all the memorabilia. And it was, to me, it was really cool. My wife helped me out. It was great. And just really seeing the people go into the room and just stop and have conversations about some of the memorabilia and some of the cool stuff that was there. And like I said, to me, that was worth it. But the ceremony itself was great. It always is. It was such a strong class. It was great to see Chase and Ryan, Jameer Nelson. I will say, Ryan looks like he could go out there and play right now. Looked very slim and good. So maybe he can teach these guys how to have some plate discipline, because Ryan did pull a lot of walks in his time, and that's what the Phillies need. I will say the highlight of the evening for me was Dan Baker, who is an awesome dude. Just a very nice guy. Did do his last, I guess, final introduction of Chase and Ryan. Got chills hearing him say, "Second baseman, Chase." It was just very cool. And the same thing with Ryan Howard. I think the other big takeaway for me is just Loreline Jones, her story, and just how she commanded the room. I thought that was really cool. But just an overall great day. Like I said, I have a ton of notes in my phone I was taking, so as I get time to process them today, we'll do a full recap. But lots of good stories, and to me, that's the thing that you don't see. You see these guys on the field, but you don't really see their stories. And yes, Chase and Ryan, and even to a certain point, Jameer, those are like the big names. But hearing the story of Cheryl Reeve, hearing Loreline Jones, hearing just George Benton's daughter-in-law get up and talk about him and how much this would mean to him, I think that, to me, is what the Hall of Fame is all about. And it's one thing to have the museum of the collections of memorabilia and artifacts and things like that, but to me, it's all about the stories. And I really like that the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame is not just for the major sports teams. It's for the great athletes in our area who need to be celebrated and should be celebrated and deserve to be celebrated. So very excited to kind of go through, look at my notes, and I'll do a full recap of things tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Be sure to go check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast. New football episode is out. I would imagine very soon. I'm not sure. It could be today. I didn't really get a chance to follow up and check anything, but the college sports one is coming out as well. They're doing great things over there. So that's available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. And it is Dallas week. And even though some of the luster is off with the injuries to the Cowboys and just them being almost as big of a dumpster fire as the Sixers, Philly Goat has you covered with all the Dallas stuff. My brother's been posting a lot of his Dallas suck shirts and things like that he's gotten from Philly Goat. So go to Philly Goat, show your hate for Dallas. I told you about those coolers. Get one of the coolers that with their partnership with Varsity Coolers, and then use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. They got some great hoodies too. It's a little chilly today. I like it. Finally, not 80 degrees in November, but go to Philly Goat, use that promo code Jim Montgomery, and take 10% off of your order. All right, speaking of the dumpster fire that is the Sixers, they're in LA tonight to take on the Lakers. This could be ugly. It came out yesterday. Tyrese is going to be out a few weeks with that hamstring injury, and with any type of soft tissue injury like that, it could be something that lingers all season. I don't know, but it's not good in Sixers land. So we'll see. And they're in last place in the entire NBA. They're 1-6, and Utah's 1-7. So my question to you today, the question of the day, is the season over? I mean, do we start rooting for a lottery pick at this point? 267-495-8531. That gets you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Is the Sixers season over? Should we start rooting for the lottery pick? I think my preseason prediction was quite a bit lofty. I fully expected Lucy to take the football away from me. I didn't expect it to happen this soon. But let me know your thoughts. Get anything else Philly sports related off your chest on the Back to the Future voice and text line, 267-495-8531. But man, the Sixers are in trouble. Flyers with a big 2-1 win yesterday over the Tampa Bay Lightning. That game went to a shootout and they won. Mishkov sat out, basically just part of the process of learning. And John Tortorella just said it wasn't anything. It's just part of the learning curve and the process of getting used to the NHL. Owen Tipped scored with under 5 minutes left to give the Flyers, or send the game to overtime, and then the Flyers did win the shootout. Ivan Fedotov was a last-minute inserted last minute as goalie. Played very well, saving all but one of the shots he took. They continue their Florida trip tomorrow when they take on the Panthers. Another tough game for the Flyers, but a huge, pretty good win. We'll take it. 2-1 in a shootout over Tampa Bay. We do have some Union news, and the Union fired manager Jim Curtin, who had been there for 10 years, which I didn't realize until I read the article. He's from Orland as well, so maybe I'll see him around at the store or something. But I think this is going to be an offseason change for the Union anyway, so not a big surprise, I don't think. I think it's really going to be probably cleaning house and just starting from scratch. So might be in for a few long seasons here with the Union. Eagles news, I missed this yesterday. Saquon Barkley is the NFC's Offensive Player of the Week again. 3 times he's won that award. I think that's more times than he won it the entire time he was at the New York Giants. So you got to love that. Congrats to Saquon. Injuries trending in the right direction for the Eagles. Devontae was a limited participant with that hamstring. Fred Johnson was a limited participant. Looks like Goddard's going to be ready to go. Nolan Smith was a limited participant. So the guys that missed on Wednesday practiced in some fashion. We should get a clearer picture today. But, man, it's Dallas week, and I'm starting to get more hyped up. It started off slow, I guess, baby, because preparing for the induction ceremony yesterday, but starting to get that little bit of a hypeness about this game. So Eagles-Cowboys this weekend. We'll have more on the game tomorrow. Hopefully some very good news on the injury front. And then Sunday we'll have our 3 keys and make our prediction. All right, we're going to change it up and shift gears somewhat today. And we're going to go back to 1986, and we're going to do a little college football today. And on this day in 1986, the Temple Owls lost to Boston College 38-29 at the Vet. But the story was all about Heisman Trophy candidate Paul Palmer, who just had a ridiculous day and set NCAA records. He had 38 rushes for 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. With that 212 yards, he set an NCAA record for yards in a 4-game stretch, which I don't know if it's been beaten yet. It's kind of one of those random weird stats, but for 4 games, no running back in NCAA history was better than Paul Palmer. On this day, though, not only did he score 2 touchdowns on the ground, he also threw a 33-yard touchdown pass. That Temple team was coached by Bruce Arians, who went on to win a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Had some success out in Arizona as well. They fell to 5-4 en route to a 6-5 finish that season. Palmer, to his credit, did finish second in the Heisman Trophy voting that year. Vinny Testaverde just kind of completely ran away with that Heisman that year. But he led the nation in rushing with 866 yards, scored 15 touchdowns, would go on to be drafted number 19 overall by the Kansas City Chiefs. Bounced around, didn't really have a great NFL career, but stuck around for a few years as a backup with a couple different teams. I think he had a cup of coffee with the Eagles then as well. And today you can still hear Paul Palmer. He is the radio analyst for Temple on for their football broadcast. Does a good job. I do enjoy when I listen to Temple games listening to Paul Palmer. But on this day, back in 1986, Temple lost to Boston College 38-29, but Paul Palmer, with a record-setting day, had 212 yards, set an NCAA record for most rushing yards over a 4-game stretch, and then he threw a 33-yard touchdown to boot. So back when the Temple Owls were actually worth watching for football, I would love to get back to those days. All right, so now that we're done, the 2024 induction spotlight, I'm kind of previewing this, but November 17th, we're going to start our 2nd annual food and gift drive. Proceeds will benefit the Maddie and Dixon Community Cupboard in Ambler. So we're going to do, starting on the 17th, what we're thankful for in Philly sports. And believe it or not, there is a lot to be thankful for. But until then, I figured I would try something new today. And part of my process is a lot of times I'll go back. I have a newspapers.com subscription. So I'll go back and read the Daily News or the Inquirer if it's a Sunday and really find out again, I like to tell the story. So read the newspaper, what they were saying during that game or season or whatever. And it's always interesting to me anyway to see what else was going on. So we talked about Temple losing to Boston College and Paul Palmer having the record-setting day. But what else was happening on November 8th in 1986? Well, the Flyers lost to the Rangers 3-2. However, they still were in first place in the Wales Conference. They were coming off, I believe, the 86-87. They would go to the Stanley Cup Final. That was the year after Pelle Lindbergh passed away. So the Flyers in first place in the Wales Conference. Number 2, Penn State struggled to beat Maryland 17-15, but that game, or that team, would go on to win the national championship, beating Vinny Testaverde's Miami Hurricanes. I believe that was in the Fiesta Bowl that year. But Penn State was the big story in the Philadelphia Inquirer on this day. And I guess that's one of those things back then. Penn State, and for some reason, I migrated toward Michigan, but Penn State was a big deal in this area back then. It's still a lot of Penn State people around here today, but I guess we'd be talking more Penn State if this was this day in Philly sports history happened in 1986. Stop me if you've heard this before. The Sixers were 3-2, but all the stories were about their health. And this was right after that offseason when they traded Moses for Jeff Ruland. The stories were like, is Jeff Ruland ever going to play? Are his knees going to hold up? And just brutal. But Charles Barkley was in the hospital with a bruised spleen, so he was missing. Cliff Robinson, remember, we had Cliff, not Clifford. We had Cliff Robinson. He was out with a separated shoulder. And then, of course, Andrew Toney, near the end of his career, his feet were still bothering him. But again, sometimes the more things change, the more they stay the same. The Sixers were just not healthy. It just was a hot mess for the Sixers to start that 1986 season. And the Eagles were 3-6. They were gearing up for a big game at the Vet against the Giants. The big story was this was Buddy Ryan's first year. A lot of these guys, they were playing for their jobs, basically an audition. Would they be on the team in 1987? Would they not? I believe this was Jaworski's last year. This was the year that Buddy Ryan, Jaworski was the starter, but Buddy Ryan would put Randall in. So things were not good that first year for Buddy Ryan, but we know he was in the process. Things were very quickly going to turn around for the Eagles. But that's what was happening in the sports page on this day, November 8th, 1986. It was all about Penn State, and they struggled to beat Maryland, but I think it was at that point, Joe Pa had like a ridiculous regular season record. They had won like 20 straight regular season games, but they would go on to win the national championship in 1986. On this day, though, Temple lost to Boston College. Paul Palmer, with a record-setting day, scored 2 touchdowns, threw another. His 212 yards helped him set a record for a 4-game stretch in the NCAA history, and he would go on to finish a distant second in the Heisman that year behind the winner, Vinny Testaverde. We'll have more on the Eagles as we get in and closer to game day, but it is Dallas week, so let's get fired up on a feel-good Friday. Let me know your thoughts on the Sixers. Is it time to just give up on this season and look forward to the lottery? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. They're in LA tonight, and it could get ugly. I'll have more on the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony once I'm able to go through my notes. Be sure to spread the word. Let's continue to outsmart the algorithm. But it is a feel-good Friday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for November 8th, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Friday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.